Hey, this is Ron John. I had the flu and whiplash from a car crash, and I know why you clicked this video, so I'm not going to waste your time. Yes, this is actually a video on who I think would be the best roommate out of the original 84 Autobots. Let's get to it. In this video, we are going to be looking at the original 1984 cast of Autobots, that is to say the ARC crew and the Dinobots plus Jetfire, with the idea being which of these Autobots would be the best and the worst to share an apartment with. And just to be abundantly clear, I'm not saying that we are now Spitewit Wiki, we are not going on adventures with the Autobots, we are going to be looking at these characters and trying to figure out who would be the best and the worst to have to live with. And in terms of what criteria I am judging them on, it's based on if I'd be willing to hang out with them in our downtime, if I would feel safe being around them or what they might be doing, if I would trust them to pay their half of the rent, and finally, would I trust them to do their half of the chores. Just in case you've never seen a ranking video before, we are going to break each character down by giving them a grade. An S grade is to say that this would be a perfect roommate without a single issue, or at least not an issue that would bring them down. An A rank is still a really good roommate that maybe has a couple of issues. A B rank is someone who's still pretty solid. C would mean that they are completely acceptable, but maybe not your best friend or someone who you really trust all that much. D would be you would be trying to move out as soon as you can. And an F rank would be you would actively rather live in your car than share a house with these people. Let's start off with the golden boy of the franchise, Bumblebee. Mostly because I think he's a C rank. I don't think that Bumblebee has any issues in terms of his share of the responsibilities. I think that he would be more than happy to pay rent. I think he'd be able to make rent. I also think that he would be more than able to do his half of the chores to keep the shared living space tidy. The issue is, Bumblebee's kind of a square. Keep in mind that we're talking about G1 cartoon Bumblebee. So this is Dan Gillivision and all of that squeaky clean Boy Scout nature he carried. I think that Bumblebee would be a bit of a narc. I think that he would actually rat you out to the landlord if you did something that was even kind of against the lease. I also think that Bumblebee would be just a bit of a, not a prick, but definitely have a little bit more of a stick up his ass than most other Autobots. I don't think it's because he's a bad guy. I don't think it's because he's a jerk. I just think that he's a very idealistic person, and some of that idealism has bled over into maybe just not having enough fun. Next up, we have Blue Streak, who is getting a D. Now, I think that in social situations, Blue Streak will be great. He's going to talk all the time, sure, but I love good conversation. I think we're both very extroverted, and I also think that he would be good at getting his rent. Maybe he would be so-so on chores. I just don't see Blue Streak being all that willing to do the dishes, but I think that he would be at least begrudgingly willing to do his share. The issue is the PTSD. I mean this with all the love in my heart. I kind of get the feeling that at night I could hear Blue Streak crying through our wall, and I also think that Blue Streak would probably get very clingy. I think that he would need someone to be around him at all times so that he could always have someone to talk to, mostly because if you read Blue Streak's bio, the horrors of war have affected Blue Streak more than just about anyone else. Even in IDW, Rung talks about how Red Alert and Blue Streak were some of his earliest and most consistent patients. Oh, we're just going to keep with the horrible hot takes. Sunstreaker gets an F. Sunstreaker is a massive narcissist. He's also a sociopath. I think Sunstreaker would not be willing to work, let alone willing to get rent money. He would absolutely not be willing to do chores. He would be expecting me to work 2 jobs to pay both of our rents and also for his groceries and still do the dishes. And I feel like he would always have a snide comment whenever I walked into a room. He'd probably make fun of me for having to work, even though he himself is not willing to work. He would be a nightmare roommate just based on his sheer, unabated egotism. Now, Sunstreaker is a fun character. I like him a lot as a character, but that's because I don't have to live with this schmuck. At least least his twin brother is a little bit better. Sideswipe, I would give a solid C ranking. I think Sideswipe would be willing to work. I think that he would be willing to do chores, and I think he would be more than happy to pay his half of the rent. I think that he would sometimes be a bit bullish. He would probably argue sometimes over very dumb things, but I also think Sideswipe's the kind of guy to let grudges go. The issue with Sideswipe is he's very codependent on his twin. I just get the feeling that if Sideswipe's your roommate, Sunstreaker is going to be living on your couch more often than not. And I just don't want it. I just don't want it. I think Sideswipe had a chance to be a solid B even, but his sheer need to always have his brother around really hurts his own score. If Bumblebee was the golden boy, Optimus Prime is the main character of the franchise. He is the leader of the Autobots. He is a spectacular character. He is one of my favorite leaders in all of fiction, which is why it might be kind of surprising that I give him a B ranking. Now, I want to make this point abundantly clear. I think he actually would be a perfect roommate for a lot of people. The thing is, Optimus is kind of like your dad. Like, I just don't see him going out that often. And if you come back home, he's probably just going to be on his recliner with a newspaper and his glasses on, and he'll never be judging you. He's always going to be supportive and uplifting and loving, but it's also just, you kind of wish that he would argue with you sometimes. I know that this sounds weird, but I think that Optimus is so nice that if you had to live with him one-on-one for a prolonged period of time, it would actually start to grate on you how nice he is. It would almost be like you resent him for just being a good guy. You would become the Homer Simpson to his Ned Flanders. And I don't want to live with Optimus Prime like that. I love Optimus. I want to keep adoring Optimus for every single part of him. And if this was a case where I was a kid and Optimus was my dad, or if I was an employee and Optimus was my boss, it'd be perfect. But living with him as two adults, I just think that it would eventually turn into me resenting the fact that he is so well put together and so helpful and so friendly and so nice, and it would eventually turn me into a supervillain out of sheer envy and jealousy. Nothing against Optimus. It is my failings as a human being that have given him this B rank. It's my boy, Hound! Now, you might think that I would give Hound the same rank as Bumblebee. I'm actually going to give him an A. And the reason for that is because, one, Hound loves to hike. He loves nature. I'm willing to bet that he would know a lot of cool documentaries to watch. And I also think he would be more interesting in a conversation. The other part of this, though, is I think Hound is a lot less rigid than Bumblebee. I think Bumblebee is very much a teacher's pet. Whereas Hound, I think he's a good kid, but I don't think he would necessarily narc on me for smoking. In fact, he probably knows where to buy the best stuff. It's just complete headcanon at this point. I just think Hound is a more chill Bumblebee. And that's a big reason as to why I'd be more willing to live with him. The only reason he is not a perfect S is because I do think that my interests and Hound's interests would clash a little bit. But I still think he would be overall a really nice roommate and someone who I would enjoy having around. Similar to Hound, I think Trailbreaker would be a relatively decent roommate. I'm going to give him a solid B. The reason why Trailbreaker is a B is I do think that he has a lot of self-image issues, and I'm honestly worried that it would only be exacerbated, not by me intentionally making comments, but more just us living together, me not knowing the extent of where his issues may lie. Trailbreaker is an incredibly nice guy, but he's a nice guy who needs constant validation, and without that validation, he gets into a depressive spiral. And moreover, he's going to eat a lot. And don't get me wrong, I think that he is more than happy to pay for his groceries. But I also think that he's going to turn that into another bit of self-resentment, as if he thinks that he's like taking the food out of my mouth. Overall, I think Trailbreaker would be a wonderful guy to hang out with. I would love to be his buddy. But I'm actually worried that, just like Blue Streak, I'm just not equipped to be able to help him through his own journey. Trailbreaker needs a therapist, not necessarily a roommate. Oh, look, it's Grimlock! Grimlock gets an F. Grimlock is a belligerent asshole. He's just going to be trying to pick fights all the time. Do you think he's willing to work a job to make rent? Do you think that he's buying his own groceries? Do you think that he's ever going to be supportive to you in any way, shape, or form? The only way Grimlock will respect you is if you are strong like he is. The best I can say is, as much as he might bully me, he would probably stop other people from bullying me because he hates bullies even more than he hates weaklings. But that doesn't stop him from being a dick in his own right. I don't need Grimlock's energy in my life right now. And I really, really, really don't think anyone else can either. It's kind of amazing that Swoop is able to balance out not only Grimlock, but all their other jackass friends. Oh, speaking of the other jackasses, here's Slug, Snarl, and Sludge. They're all F-. Screw that, they're G. They're G ranked. The reason they're G is because at least Grimlock is kinda smart. Like, he can make his own decisions. Not only are all of these three more violent and more belligerent and want to argue even more, all three of them are also way dumber. They would need direction while insulting you, while calling you names, and I might be crazy, I'm almost positive Slug knows some slurs, and he's going to be dropping them. But I don't think he's smart enough to know what slur goes to what group. So I think that you're just going to be randomly just cluster bombed with horrible words that don't even necessarily apply to you, because the guy is so dumb and yet also so hateful that he is using them without even fully understanding what he's saying. So overall, the other Dinobots, I absolutely would rather just live in a ditch than have to live in the same state. As for Swoop, he gets a C. I think Swoop is actually a perfectly decent roommate. I think that he would probably have issues in terms of rent, not because he's not willing to work, but for some reason Swoop rubs me as the kind of guy who would actually just forget to cash his checks at the end of the week. And past that, I think that he would actually be more than willing to listen to you, talk, and he'd probably be pretty chill. The only other major issue with Swoop is he's a package deal with the other Dinobots. If Swoop is around, he's going to invite at least Grimlock over, and Grimlock is probably going to take it upon himself to invite the other three. We're going to another heavy hitter now with Ironhide. I think Ironhide would make a B roommate. I think that the only issues with Ironhide is, well, he is open carry all the time. And I don't think that he's dangerous with guns. I think that he can fully practice gun safety. What I also think is that he has a whole bunch of future guns that I don't fully understand, and I might be using one of them as an oven and not realize that I'm actually cooking through the chamber of a pistol. It's just, Ironhide has too many weapons that I don't think I can ever fully understand, and regardless of how responsible he is, I just think that the change in knowledge, the breadth, the sheer width of difference between myself and Ironhide when it comes to those weapons makes him a little bit iffy. At the same time, I think that he would be more than fun to live with. I think he'd basically be like living with your cool grandpa, and he would, be very supportive, very happy to hang out. I also think that he would be great when it comes to paying rent and doing chores. It really is just his hobby that's ruining this for me. Now we're going to Mirage. And Mirage was someone I really struggled with. I just didn't know where to place him, but in all honesty, I think he's our first S rank. I think that Mirage is a perfect roommate for a few reasons. One, he's loaded, so rent is never going to be an issue. However, he's also incredibly nice, so I think that he'd be willing to do his end of the chores, maybe even more than he has to do. I also think that he's the type of roommate who'd remember your birthday, he would do movie nights with you. Mirage rubs me as the type of person who just enjoys having a handful of close friends, and he would be more than happy to add you to the friend group. I also think that he has a lot of similar interests to me. I could see us maybe writing together, maybe go to like a slam poetry fest. I don't know. I feel like in the very pretentious and artsy-fartsy type of world that I live in, Mirage would fit in exactly as well as I do, and we could be the best of buds. Then there's Braun. Braun's a D. D for dick. This guy sucks. No offense to anyone who likes Braun, but he does suck. Like, he'll just beat you up because he thinks you're a nerd. And then when you use your smarts to save the day, he'll be like, "Oh, my best bud. I'm never gonna say sorry for all those slurs I carved into your locker, but, we're gonna be friends now." Yeah, Braun sucks. I don't want him in my house. What about Braun's buddy, Windcharger? I think he's a little bit better, so I'm gonna give him a C rank. Windcharger, I think, would be more than able to pay the rent and do his chores. I just think Windcharger would get really weird about his magnetism powers. Like, it'd be a thing where he was constantly calling you into his room so that he could show you another trick that he just figured out. It'd be like living with a 12-year-old who just found out how to do some magic tricks. And no offense to Windcharger, when I get home from work, I just want to go to sleep. Finally, we are at Optimus Prime's first lieutenant, designation Jazz. S rank. Are you kidding me? Of course Jazz is an S rank. What possible issue could I bring up for Jazz? He is incredibly kind, very social, and yet he's also emotionally intelligent. He is an awesome person to talk to and have deeper conversations with, but he also knows how to keep it light. He's the type of person who would probably bring people over, but he would always text you like 2 days beforehand to make sure it's okay. He'd probably be a great cook. I know he has wonderful taste in music. And overall, I just think that living with Jazz would be perfect. Like one of the single greatest experiences you could ever have with a roommate. And then you have his opposite number, Prowl. Prowl is an F rank because Prowl's a prick. Prowl absolutely would be the type of person to go into your room just to keep notes of what's going on in there. He would not give you any type of privacy, and he would start signing documents and forging your signature. I think that Prowl's a very controlling and vindictive person, and I don't want him to know where I sleep. And then there's my boy, Cliffjumper. Now keep in mind what I said at the beginning of the video. My opinion on this character as a character is not the same as my opinion of this character as a roommate. Cliffjumper's my favorite. He's my boy. He's my guy. I love him. I also think he's a B. I think that he would still be a good roommate. I think we'd have a lot of fun. The thing is, Cliffjumper is really into McCarthyism, which means that if he and I have any differences of opinion, he would probably start to get really paranoid. Keep in mind, let's look at another person we just ranked, Mirage, an S rank, mind you. Cliffjumper tried to put a cap in his dome just because he was pretty sure Mirage was a Decepticon. He didn't have any proof of that. He just had a gut feeling because he didn't like Mirage. I just feel like Cliffjumper and I would start off great. We would have a montage. He teaches me how to ride a bike. We play games together. Things are going awesome. And then he finds out that I like a topping on a pizza that he doesn't like. And then pretty soon it ends with me duct taped to a wall somewhere. We're rounding out the original 5 Bayverse Autobots with Ratchet. Overall, I think that Ratchet would be a really solid roommate, an A rank even. And my reason for saying that is I think Ratchet would just be chill. He would be like a nice old guy, and every so often he'd probably get onto you for some of your diet, or he would give you some unsolicited advice, but it would always be very friendly and you could tell where he was coming from. I do think that Ratchet would occasionally get just a little bit crabby just because of how stressful his work is and his older age. Wheeljack, the single character with the most requests for any episode of Many Toys of ever. Incredibly popular, this character. I know you guys love him. He's an F. He's absolutely an F. Are you kidding me? Are you effing kidding me? This guy blows up all the time. He would be building neutron bombs in my bathroom. I just don't trust him to be around me. He is not following any type of regulation. He is not responding to any type of oversight. And what's even worse is he might have the dinobots just show up at random. And then the dinobots know where I live. Like, Wheeljack is already an F without the dinobots. But with the dinobots, he is now an even bigger F. He might be joining the other 3 in G. I don't know. He's a nice guy. I'd like to hang out with him. But I absolutely don't want to be sleeping in any building where he might be working on a project. Oh, look, it's Huffer. oh wow, I wonder what he's going to complain about today, and he's probably going to make some name that makes me feel really bad about myself, and I don't know why, I just get the real distinct impression that Huffer would make comments about my weight, like, all the time. He's a D. He's not going to physically harm me, he's not going to make the place dangerous to live in, but he absolutely would be a schmuck, and the entire time, I would be either plotting to murder him in his sleep, or just trying to find a new place to live. This is gonna sound so weird and dumb. If this was just based on who I think I would get along with out of the original Autobots, I think that Gears and I probably would hit it off the best. I know that you guys only see a part of me that is the part that is really excited about toys and Transformers, but I'll be the first to admit I'm a pretty cynical person. I really enjoy a bit of dark humor, I like a whole lot of dry and kind of biting humor, and I tend to, let's say, plan for the worst and hope for the best. I kind of feel like Gears and I would just hit it off really well. We have very similar mindsets, and I feel like we would just start making each other laugh, or maybe we'll just become rivals and try to get more cynical than the other, but it'd always be in a friendly kind of way. Basically, I think I would be like Statler and Waldorf with Gears. I think that we would just find a theater house somewhere and start making fun of a frog doing stand-up comedy. At the same time, I don't want to live with Gears, mostly because I think that we would just become like a repeat loop for each other. I'm really worried that if you got the two of us together and had us live with one another, so that the first person we saw in the morning and the last person we saw at night was each other, it would just eventually turn into either Gears or myself crack from sheer desperation and nihilism. I'd like to hang out with Gears, I just don't want to live with him. And finally, our last Season 1 Autobot is Jetfire. I'm going to give Jetfire our final S rank. I think that he has all the positives of Optimus Prime without the disappointed dad potential. Jetfire would be too busy doing his own experiments and projects to really ever be able to become that type of overbearing figure in your life. But he would still have all the same positives of being emotional, empathetic, friendly, and upbuilding. There's also the fact that he's a jet, and that's everyone. Just to recap, Slug, Snarl, and Sludge are all G rank. In F rank, we have Prowl, Sunstreaker, and Wheeljack. Huffer, Braun, Grimlock, and Bluestreak all make up the D rank. Bumblebee, Sideswipe, Swoop, Windcharger, and Gears are all completely average, forming up the largest group in the C rank. Cliffjumper, Ironhide, Trailbreaker, and Optimus Prime each only have one major issue that's holding them back, but would still be really nice roommates to have around in the B rank. Hound and Ratchet actually make up the smallest group of rankings, as they both made an A rank, just missing out on being the perfect roommate, but still being better than 99% of the competition. And finally, Jetfire, Jazz, and Mirage form the S rank. Perfect roommates from top to bottom, no complaints here. So guys, if you are ever in a situation in which Mount St. Helens erupts again, the Ark empties out, and the crew all need roommates, now you know who to go for and who to avoid. I also know that this is a very different video for me. Again, this just comes down to the fact that, one, I just wanted to do something that was new and kind of fun to make myself happy for today. But also, I know my voice isn't exactly what it usually is, and this is such a strange concept. I'm not expecting it to do super well, but I hope you guys enjoyed it, and hey, if there is any liking of it, maybe we'll do more videos like this in the future. I just wanted to try out something kind of weird and goofy for today. But thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see what we get up to next time.